Usually it's the person who is less talented that feels they have to pump themselves up. The people that are truly good know they're good, and they don't have to brag about it. I think that humility with confidence, because humility means I still can continue to learn. So every time you pick up a script, you go, oh, I haven't played this part. I have to start from scratch as if I'm a beginner and breathe life into this.
Talent Talk is sponsored by Company of Rogues Actors Studio, New York-style training for actors at all stages of their journey. With our part-time classes and full-time masterclass program, Rogues provides a unique post-secondary option under the guidance of working professionals. Mentoring and developing professional film and theater artists since 1993, Calgary's longest-running independent studio offers practical hands-on classes in a positive, supportive environment. Check us out at corogues.com. Company of Rogues, passionate about the art of acting.
Hey everybody, I'm Gary McLean, and you're watching Talent Talk. Thanks for tuning in. If you haven't done so already, please do go to the Talent Talk YouTube channel. Subscribe today. As always, the support's appreciated. Also, a reminder that this and previous episodes are available on podcast mediums such as Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, just to name a few. If you'd like a full list of where you can actually listen to the show, check out the description details of this and previous episodes. Now, I need to give a quick shout out to our sponsors this year, which is great. Thank you, everybody. First, it would be Company of Rogues. We also have 6 Degrees, whose booth we're actually in today, so thank you for those guys. Workflow Film, who is actually operating the cameras today, so thank you for that. We also have Heard of One Media, Counting Coup, Indigenous Film Academy, and finally, ACTRA Alberta. So thanks for everyone for your support this year. It's amazing. So I can't thank you guys enough. Now, today's guest, he is actually an actor and film instructor. Actually, I shouldn't say film instructor. He teaches theater and film. He's worked on the stage across Canada and internationally, as well as many film and television projects. He's the co-founder and co-director of the Company of Rogues Actors Studio here in Calgary and Rogueswest in Vancouver. He has an MFA in directing from the U of C and an honors BA for acting and directing from the University of Guelph. He is well respected and a pillar of the film community and theater scene here in Calgary. So please join me in welcoming Joe Norman Shaw to the show.
Hey, how's it going today?
Good. How about you?
Not too bad. Not too bad, thanks.
Excellent. Thanks for joining us today, for one thing. Appreciate that for sure.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Now, you've been acting for a while. Maybe you can tell us a little bit of how that all began.
Yeah, I went through a university drama program back in the late 70s, and that was in the University of Guelph, and I ended up in Toronto, which was the most it was a prolific theater community at that time, because I think a lot of the actors in Canada, we hadn't quite found the film and TV market yet. So I started out in the theater in Toronto in the 80s, which was a really vibrant and exciting time. Lots of great companies doing interesting new works. Worked at Stratford and Festival. So that's where I got my start. And, over time ended up moving west to Vancouver, and somehow I ended up in Calgary. I don't know. And during that time, I started to do a lot more film and TV work and started to teach and direct a lot of shows with young actors. And so it's been about 40 years now that I've been doing this. It's been an interesting but fun journey.
So when you went to Vancouver, was your whole focus there? You wanted to get into the film, or?
Yeah, I was a working actor from 81 on. That's all I've really done was act and now teach as well. I was standing in the gym at the Y in Toronto, and a friend of mine came up and said, "What are you doing? What are you doing here?" I said, "What do you mean? I'm working out." He's like, "You should be in Vancouver." I go, "Why?" He goes, "Because there's a lot of film and TV work going on there, and I think you'd do well." And I'm like, interesting. I'm supposed to go visit my sister who lives in Maui in February. This was in the wintertime, and the plane stops in Vancouver on the way back. Maybe I'll check it out. And I did. I got an agent in like a day. Was auditioning at the CBC a couple of days later, and life just unfolded from there. So I guess it was, being divinely guided in some way or other.
Right. So did you actually make it back east, or did you just stay in Vancouver once you came back?
Well, I had to go back and move my stuff, and I had to come back and do a play. I was involved with a fairly important production called Unidentified Human Remains and the True Nature of Love. Brad Fraser, who's an Edmonton playwright, it's a fairly provocative play, and when we did it in Toronto in 1990 with the late Brent Carver and a wonderful cast, it kind of took Toronto by storm, and we ended up taking to the National Arts Centre, to Montreal. And then when I was in Vancouver, it's like, oh, do you want to come to Mexico City? We're taking this to Mexico City. So I got an opportunity to have a pretty good ride out of that show. Okay. And then I came back to Vancouver and was there for a few years. I was married, and my partner, and who is an actor, co-founder of Company of Rogues, Christiane Hurt, we came here because she played the lead female role in the Lonesome Dove series.
Oh, okay.
And we came here, and it was like, I like the sunshine. It's beautiful here. And I don't know. Here we are. Like, it's been 30 years, and I'm still here. I never dreamed it. But I feel really fortunate because I got to do a lot of unexpectedly. I mean, I did a fair bit of theater here, but even more film and television projects. It was just like one would expect I would need to be in Vancouver or Toronto to do the amount of work I was fortunate to do. But yeah, Alberta's been really good to me that way, so I'm pretty blessed. And
when it comes to Company of Rogues or Rogueswest, which came first?
Yeah, and I have to say, we've actually closed Rogueswest just recently. Christiane's moved back to Calgary here. She was running it out there. She's taking a little hiatus. But yeah, we started a studio in Vancouver as Company of Rogues in 1993. And then when we moved here, we opened, we worked for some other people. There was a little place called the Alberta Centre for Acting Studies in 94, 95 with Leslie Swan, who was the casting director for Lonesome Dove at the time. I worked for her. And then in 96, we opened Company of Rogues here in a space that the Art Ranch, which was a theater company, had uncovered on 17th Ave and took it over for like $500 a month. And we started the studio here and started with 12 students, and then it just went gangbusters, So it's been, it's going on 30 years almost that we've had Company of Rogues. So it's had its roots there, but it had its longevity here. Rogueswest was for maybe 8 years in Vancouver. Okay.
All right. And what would you say your class sizes are like nowadays?
Well, we try to keep them, relatively intimate. So, and what we've gotten from the whole COVID thing was cohorting. So if I have 16 people in an advanced film class, let's say, for instance, I'll do 2 cohorts. And so we'll have a group of 8 for a couple of hours, and then another group of 8 for a couple of hours, so that I can actually give people more time and attention that way. Less people in the room, which for a lot of reasons is valuable, and so generally our classes run from 14 to 16 people.
Okay. And how many different classes do you actually have, or workshops, or whatever the case might be?
I'd say at any given time we probably have about 100 students studying. But I mean, we have a variety of things. I have like 3 camera classes. We have a few scene study classes, which are, acting classes without a camera, and Meisner technique, voice, movement. So it's a full range of there's nothing extraneous in there. We feel like what we offer is going to be valuable to any actor, whether they're working in film or theater. We try to give a good equal blend in terms of training actors, because you want to maximize your opportunities as an actor. It's all good if you love acting. It's on the stage or you're on set. It's a lot of fun, and I think that a good actor should be able to move back and forth between mediums if they choose to.
Right. And in the beginning, what was your motivation to actually create the school? Did you just feel there was a need for it locally, or?
Well, initially, when we were in Vancouver, where we started it, Christiane and I were on our honeymoon on the Oregon coast, and we this is where we came. This is where we got the name. So a few people have heard this story before, but we would walk the beach and talk about what we would create together. Maybe it would be a film company or theater company or an acting studio, or some version of all that. And we went into a little pub there, and she went to use the facilities, and I'm looking up at the beer list, and I'm like, Rogue Beer. Company of Rogues. I don't know. I had this idea of like a collaborative group of individuals,
Right.
You know, as opposed to something solo like we think of Rogue, but a company of rogues. So everyone's uniqueness would kind of shine through. And she came back, and I threw the name at her. She goes, I love it. And 2 months later, we started the studio there in Vancouver in a little space that ACTRA had, a little space that nobody was using. They rented it to us cheap, and we started teaching some classes out of there. We started with 12 students, and we probably had 40. We wrapped it up when we came here to do Lonesome Dove.
Right. Well, I definitely had a different story in my head of how the name came to creation. I was kind of going back to the D&D thing and going, okay, rogues are always stealthy, and I just had this vision in my head that you guys had this whole story around the Rogue name, not just a beer.
It is beer. So. You go, you do a show or shoot or whatever, you got to go for beer after, right? So it's kind of appropriate that way.
Yeah, no, it totally works. Totally works. Absolutely. That's awesome. So you said Rogueswest is kind of shut down right now. Is there a plan to maybe bring it back?
What's kind of happened is my daughter, Sophie Hurt, she taught at the Rogueswest, and she's kind of taken the actors we were working with there and is doing her own thing, separating from mom and dad, doing because it's the family business, right? But she's like, I think I want to do it on my own now. So that's fine. So we send our students out there to her. She's a great teacher and a lovely actor. She's done really well for herself, done a few series and some great movie work out there. And so no, there's no plan beyond that. That's fine. The studio here is a vibrant and busy place, and so we're really happy with what we got here. And I don't know, I always thought that maybe one day I would end up moving back to Vancouver just for the, my later years. But for whatever reason, this place has kind of grown on me, and I don't necessarily see myself moving now. So our feet are firmly planted, and Rogues will live on as long as I guess I can still get to the studio.
Fair enough. That's the one thing I kind of find interesting is, you've got this school here, and it's definitely well respected within the community here for sure. Everybody I talk to is like, oh, have you got a company of Rogues? Have you taken those classes? They're great, blah, blah, blah. But Calgary is such a small market in comparison to, say, Vancouver. So I was kind of wondering how, it just seems almost odd to me that we have that here when the market is so small. I think it's great, don't get me wrong. I thought there would be a better market for it in Vancouver because there's just such a higher volume of actors, if you will. Yeah,
I think people thought we were crazy when we opened our doors, but it took off. And here's the reason why it works. First of all, a lot of the actors who want to have professional careers, I mean, some of them stay here, but a lot of them do go to the coast, and we're well known out there. So people, you're in Calgary, you must have trained at a company of Rogues. And so I have a lot of actors out there who are having really nice careers, and some of them go to Toronto. A few might go south, but mostly the coast. It's the most natural movement. Now, Calgary is a very unique place this way, because if we were having the studio in Vancouver, you would only have people at the studio who wanted to have a career as actors. Here, we have those, definitely, because that's what we're mostly doing is training people for the profession. But we also have a lot of people who come because they love to act. They're doing amateur shows or they're making their own films. It's very grassroots. And they have, they may have regular jobs, but the acting is their passion. It's an important part of their life. But they're still living kind of a normal life with a family and all that sort of thing. And so it's really unique that way here. You wouldn't have that in Vancouver or Toronto. It's a very different kind of a community.
I agree. I definitely fall into that category of, I still have the day job, but, this is more my passion. I'd like to get it a little further than just a passion, but, at least you have that, like you said, you have that available for folks like myself to be able to kind of do that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because, I besides Company of Rogues, I also run the drama program at St. Mary's University. And a lot of those kids, they're there for a liberal arts education. And there might be one or two that are, and they're pretty good student actors we get over the 3 or 4 years of their study there. But they're going to go off and be teachers or lawyers or other things. And so the skills that they use through the drama program and being in plays and being on stage and communication skills and public speaking and speaking authentically, empathy and compassion, collaboration, all those things, all those soft skills, they can take those into other parts of life. So it's the same with the studio. Some people who come for the profession and those who may do the acting as the part-time thing, but they may also use those skills in other areas of their life, which is why I think everybody should be involved in drama and acting in some capacity or other, because it's just really enriching to them as people on a personal level as well.
You know what? I can totally attest to that, because prior to me getting involved into the film community, essentially my job has consisted of just sitting in front of a computer, not a lot of interaction with the people around me, right? So you become very introverted, if you will, right? You just keep to yourself. You don't say much. And then when you do have to go in front of somebody and say, present in a meeting, you don't have the skill set. You're just sitting there going, right? You get that. Whereas once I started getting into the film side and then, doing the auditions and forcing myself to go into those scenarios where I'm very uncomfortable, well, after a while, you're just like, okay, well, it's no big deal.
Now you got your own show.
Right, and now here we are today, right? So, I can totally attest to that it does help with that self-confidence, if you will. Has there been a well-known name that you can think of that's gone through your school and is now, making it big in the industry?
Well, I wouldn't say we have any stars. No, we have people in the community who work a lot. Jared Blake works a lot here locally. He's done a lot of stuff. We have a lot of people out on the coast. Teddy Rogers has been doing a lot of work out there. Sasha Hayden, Stacey Harrison, who also taught for us. But they're working actors. They're people who are making their living in the industry and doing quite well. But it's Canada. So, I've been doing this for 40 years and probably most people watching this never heard of me. So it's hard to, become a star in that regard in Canada, but you can have a good career as a working actor.
So how much time do you actually dedicate to teaching in comparison to acting? Are you able to kind of balance that out, or?
Yeah. It's been different over the journey that I've been on. I'd say in the earlier years when we started the studio, I was mostly acting and I taught on the side. So I had a very prolific time period where I worked a lot as an actor, and things change with age a little bit. I had more parts, my 40s and early 50s, where it was really busy, and it's slowed down. I'll be honest. But so with that slowing down, then I've increased my amount of teaching to balance it out. But I'm available. I just finished working on the film Fault Line recently, and I was able to work on things like Damnation and Dead Again and Tombstone and some of those nice projects, Heartland, lots of things over the years. But particularly it's harder to do plays. I used to do a lot of theater. Like the last thing I did was 12 Angry Men at Vertigo, which was a while ago. But it just takes more time away from the teaching, and I really enjoy being a mentor and working with emerging artists. But film and TV stuff is easier to fit in. You have a few days here and there, and you can either move classes around, or if you need a sub, you can do that. So there's no bar for me to work on film and TV projects with my teaching. It would work out perfectly.
Right. And funny enough, you actually mentioned a lot of the shows that I had on my list here to ask you about, like Heartland, Fault Line, Tombstone. I also have Supernatural and MacGyver on here. Going back a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe, for somebody who's actually trying to break into this industry, maybe you could give a little bit of a general pointer of what they should focus on, especially if they're brand new. Like, should they focus on auditioning skills or just taking an actual acting workshop, or what should be that first focus that somebody should kind of look at?
Yeah, well, I think not everybody understands the importance of actor training. But some people think it just kind of happens. But you think of a natural athlete, you go, "Hey, that guy's a natural athlete. Here's some skates, a stick, and a puck, and then I'll go play hockey." But actors need to have a process, a way of working. They need to have a methodology and some tools in their toolbox so they can approach any kind of script or acting situation. So obviously, I believe in actor training. I think it's important. I think it gives the actor an opportunity to play all sorts of amazing roles that you may not always get to play in the real world, be it in, working on a variety of film scripts in front of the camera, or working without the camera, working on whatever, Shakespeare, Tennessee Williams, all that great material that actors, really feeds their soul. So first of all, get some training, and then simultaneously connect with people in the community. Get out and see if you can work on independent film projects, audition for plays, audition for everything you can. Meet people, get together with your friends, work on scripts, feed your passion and do as much as you can, particularly in the beginning, just to expand your experience base, to feed your hunger for your art form, to develop yourself, expand your range, and the more you develop yourself, you're going to be somebody who people are going to want to work with. And then simultaneously, you're going to develop, I never really liked the term like schmoozing or whatever. It's like you want to meet people in the community and become, partners. We work together. So I encourage actors to kind of make those build those relationships in the community. If it's helping out on people's sets who are, making their own films, even if it's like as a production assistant or whatever, you're meeting other like-minded artists who are up and coming. And so along with developing your skills, making those connections, getting a sense of what it's like to be on set or to be on stage, and you're away. You're starting your journey, and then one day you go, wow, it's been 40 years. How'd that happen?
Right. And I said this on numerous episodes of the show, where I feel, especially in Alberta, that we are really good for that kind of community of, being able to work with people you've never met on a different set and in any capacity, right? Holding the boom mic, whatever the case might be. But just building up that network, right? Because that's how you're going to get more work. As long as you don't have that ego. Now, that's I guess, a bit of another question, because sometimes actors do get that bit of an ego that they're, the best out there, which you kind of have to have a little bit of that attitude if you want to try and, get the work you want. I guess you almost have to have that attitude, like, I'm the best at this. I can just walk into that room and get the job. You're not going to walk in and go, well, I don't know, this might not be my best opportunity, right? So, but my question to you is, do you have any advice for how to curb that?
Yeah. I think that a lot of the best actors I've worked with, and, even famous people, they tend to be sometimes the most humble. They're not humble in the way that you would kind of like, they have a quiet confidence in themselves. They're like, I've worked hard at what I do, and I know what I'm doing, but I don't have to flaunt it. Usually it's the person who is less talented that feels they have to pump themselves up. The people that are truly good know they're good, and they don't have to brag about it. I think that humility with confidence, because humility means I still can continue to learn. So every time you pick up a script, you go, I haven't played this part. I have to start from scratch as if I'm a beginner and breathe life into this. If I assume that I already know how to play it, it doesn't allow me to explore the role in maybe the depth and complexity that I would if I have an open mind and open heart to kind of go in there and really explore all of the dimensions of that role. So I hate to see it when particularly people that I've trained get a little bit big for their britches. I mean, the reality of an acting career is one day you could be playing a really great part on set and for a film, and then the next day you're out of work, or maybe you're doing a workshop production of a play somewhere for, little or no money, because you just got to keep going because it's what you do. And so, I mean, I've had it's funny because you mentioned some of those shows on there, like the MacGyver, the Supernatural, and those are interesting to do. But I had 5 weeks in Austria shooting Crazy Canucks for a CTV TV movie, which was way more profound in my work, or shooting the CBC miniseries Everest, which we shot here mostly in the Rockies for a few weeks with a great bunch of guys, and we had a blast doing that. But most people go, "What?"
Yeah, never heard of that.
Yeah.
Oh.
Or even a season at Lunchbox Theatre. I did a season at Lunchbox Theatre with a lot of great local actors. David Lorraine, Christian Gutsus, who I think is affiliated with 6 Degrees here, was a member of a little resident company that we had when we did all the shows that season, and every day we were out there on stage practicing our craft, mostly doing a lot of comedy. And you can't learn comedy very well unless you're in front of a live audience. You develop your timing when you've got a live audience there. And so, you're doing that 1 week, and the next week you're flying to Austria. So it's I think if you just love what you do and respect the people you work with, respect your fellow actors, your crew, all the people that support you, and allow yourself to be grateful for the fact that you have these opportunities and grateful for the people who support you. This is one of the things I always tell say thank you, please, and thank you to the hair and makeup people, the wardrobe people, all the people who are assisting you on your journey, because without them,
you wouldn't have a journey.
You wouldn't have a journey.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with that. So we got a few minutes left. I'm just going to ask a couple more questions, and then we'll kind of wrap things up. One of the other questions I kind of had is, what would you say is an actor's biggest roadblock in their progression, potentially? And you can say themselves, because I think that's probably the truth.
Well, themselves and their attitude. I mean, I think going back to what I was talking about, like the humility and the willingness to learn and to grow with everything you do, what gets in your way of that is blocking that willingness to learn and to grow. Because keeping the humility and saying, oh, you need some help with that? Sure, I'll help out. And you meet some people, you work on a different project. All of those different kinds of things keeps you open and alive and keeps you moving forward, keeps your creativity flowing. I think that, if you shut yourself down, like, oh, I'm too good for that or whatever. I mean, not that an actor can't be selective with roles they choose, particularly later in their career when they've built up a good repertory of roles, but keeping an open mind and being willing to be what's the saying? Yeah, every man is our student and our teacher. Like we're always learning from each other. Women too, but we're always learning from each other and teaching each other, and we have to keep an open mind. And I, as a teacher, I learn from my students all the time, watching them do different things, and I have to adjust, when I'm redirecting something based on what they're doing. But sometimes they come up with some really amazing things. I never thought of that. So I think the willingness to continue to grow will keep you from getting stuck.
Yeah. No, I tend to agree, especially in a market like Calgary, where it is, you don't have much wiggle room, if you will, to, not have that humility, because there's not a ton of opportunity here. So,
Yeah, and you can have humility with confidence.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, that's one of the things is to be able to step onto a set. I mean, because let's face it, when we were doing in-person auditions, which we haven't been doing for a while, and you walk into the callback situation with the director and producers, yeah, there's your performance, but there's the confidence that you bring into the room. And when you do know your craft and you know how to approach your work, and you can walk in with a quiet confidence, but that humility relaxes you. You're just glad to be there. You're meeting some new people. Hi. I'm not trying to show off. I'm not trying to push myself on you. I'm here to work with you and show you what I can do. And I always found that opened doors for people, because they oh, you'll be easy to work with. I liked your work, but I also enjoyed having you in the room. Like, you're a person I can direct and collaborate and work with. So,
yeah, absolutely. And you actually brought up an interesting point as well with the in the room versus we're just doing it in our living rooms now, right?
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious what your opinion is on that, whether you think we'll eventually get back to in-room, or if you think this is the way it's going to be, and is there a better advantage in one versus the other?
Well, I mean, I'm kind of old school in most things anyways. I mean, I would like to see it get back to that, because I think walking into the room and meeting the producer and directors and having a face-to-face is really exciting and important. And so I think there are new and upcoming actors who've never even had that experience. So there's advantages and disadvantages. Obviously, with doing your self-tapes, you have control over that, and then you can send it in, but you have no control over if it gets seen or not, or if they just fast forward through you. When you're in the room, you're in the room. So, and then doing a callback, say on Zoom, which has its technological challenges, as I've been through. I think meeting people on Zoom isn't exactly the same as meeting them in person. But it's expedient. It's cheap. And they can be anywhere and see actors from anywhere. And so the expediency of it is probably what's making that happen. Will it go back? It's hard to say. I mean, I would think, but that's just me again, that people would get tired of looking at tapes, just tapes, and would want to be in the room after a while. Like, okay, let's just book a session and bring some people in and be with people. But that hasn't happened yet. I mean, there's still, my daughter out in Vancouver, there's been a couple of auditions she had where she went in person recently, and a few people have talked about some things that they've done here more with, like a SATE film or something like that, where they brought them in the room. But it's fun. It's fun to be in the room. And so I miss that. I know some actors say they prefer the self-tape because they can control it more, but
yeah, I agree with that. I actually kind of miss the in-person right now already.
Yeah.
I know I've had a couple of callbacks on Zoom as well, and like you said, technical difficulties. But I also found that once you're, if you haven't done one for a really long time, where you've just done, say, 50 different self-tapes but never had any callbacks or feedback, and then all of a sudden you have to do one. Well, it was like doing my very first audition the very first time. I was just I was so nervous, and I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do this okay?
Yeah.
And you're talking to somebody. I just feel there's also just that personal connection, right? This is a lot better in person, not over Zoom.
And yeah, I mean, if you had done those 50 auditions in person, you'd be on your game, right?
Agreed.
Yeah. I mean, I think I know for myself, because I do teach a lot. I wished I could go to class. I have one fellow does a lot of work in town, and he's been in my advanced film class for 8 years. He said, I got to come and work out. Every week he comes and he works out, because then when he does auditions, he feels like he's on his game, right? I'm like, man, I want to do that.
Yeah.
But so there's a different kind of dynamic in the room when you're face to face with people, and you get to feel each other's essence, personalities, and to find out whether you can work together or not, or even seeing, like coming to see Rhonda Fasecki, who's always lovely to audition for, and like, hey, Rhonda, and there's a nice sense of community, and there's all the same guys that I always audition against in the room. Hey guys, how's it going?
Right.
You feel like you're part of something rather than being sequestered at home, kind of doing your own thing. So.
Right. Yeah. No, fair enough. On that note, I think we'll kind of wrap things up because I think we're out of time. However, I want to thank you for coming on the show. And I do want to just mention to the folks that might be watching that check out the description details of this episode for a link to the Company of Rogues website. Check it out, and there's a lot of great courses on there and things like that, so check that out. Again, thank you so much, Joe, for being on the show and sharing your knowledge and everything else.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.